Today, I want to share a story about a man who spent his life fighting with himself. It's the story of Tom, a middle-aged man who appeared to live an ordinary life, but inside, he was carrying a weight that no one could see. Maybe some of you will recognize something in this story, because there are so many people out there who feel the same way every day. Imagine a guy in his 40s, with a steady job, a family, a house. On the surface, everything looks pretty ideal, right? But the truth is, every morning when Tom woke up, he didn't feel peace or happiness. Instead, he felt a deep sense of anxiety and dread, as if there was this storm inside of him that just wouldn't stop. When you hear this story, do you recognize yourself in it? I'm sure many of us live this kind of life, where everything seems fine on the outside. But inside, we're struggling with emotions and thoughts we can't even explain. Tom was one of those people. He felt like he wasn't good enough. He wasn't doing enough at work. He wasn't a good enough father or husband. And the hardest part was that he didn't even feel like he was good enough for himself. This is something many of us go through. We get trapped in a cycle of self-criticism. We constantly feel like we're falling short. And the worst part is, we don't know how to get out of it. Tom felt like he was stuck in a life that didn't fit anymore. He couldn't remember the last time he felt at peace. One day, as he was on his way to work, Tom sat in his car, parked in the lot outside his office, and he couldn't move. He stared at the dashboard, feeling completely paralyzed. Every thought weighed heavily on him, like a burden he couldn't shake. His chest was tight, his breath shallow, and panic started creeping in. His heart began to race. He felt like he was on the verge of breaking down. Have you ever felt like this? Like you couldn't breathe, like everything was closing in on you. I'm sure many of us have been there. But here's the thing, we rarely talk about it. We don't admit when we're struggling. We hide it, hoping it'll just go away. But that doesn't help. It just makes the pain worse. For Tom though, something unexpected happened. In the middle of his panic, everything suddenly went silent. It was like a strange calmness, as if the storm inside his head had completely stopped. He wasn't thinking anymore. He wasn't feeling anything. He wasn't Tom with all his problems and worries anymore. For a moment, he wasn't anyone. He just was. And in that moment, he felt a peace he had never known before. This might sound strange, right? How could someone go from feeling like they're about to break down to suddenly feeling calm? But here's the thing, when you stop fighting with yourself, when you let go of all the thoughts and emotions that define you, you start to experience a different kind of peace. This is what people call ego death, when the sense of self, the I that we've built in our minds fades away, and all that's left is awareness. Tom realized something in that moment. The person he thought he was, the anxious, broken, ashamed person, wasn't real. It was just a story his mind had been telling him. And stories aren't the truth. The panic he felt just a moment before was gone. In its place was a profound sense of relief. Tom didn't have to be the person he thought he was anymore. He didn't have to carry the weight of his past, or fear the future. All of that belonged to the ego, and the ego wasn't real. And this is the most important thing Tom learned. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your past or your future. All of those things are just stories. And like all stories, they aren't real in the way we believe they are. The real you, the one who is always there, aware and observing everything, is something deeper, something beyond the mind. This is a hard concept to grasp. We've all been taught to believe that we are our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. But the truth is, those things don't define us. The real you is the part of you that is always present, always aware, regardless of what's happening in your life. Tom sat in that car, feeling lighter, like a burden had been lifted. He didn't have to fight anymore. He didn't have to figure everything out. He didn't have to be perfect. For the first time, he just was. And in that being, he found a peace that had been missing all his life. But I get it. You might be thinking, this sounds too simple. How do I even start? The answer is this. Stop trying to change yourself. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to chase after something outside of yourself to feel complete. Everything you've ever needed is already inside of you. It always has been. This might sound like something you've heard before. You're enough as you are. But the thing is, we don't really believe it. We think we need to get something else, achieve something, become someone else before we can feel good enough. But Tom learned that the search itself is the problem. The idea that we're missing something is what keeps us stuck. Here's the thing. You can't find what you're looking for because it was never missing in the first place. Happiness, success, even enlightenment, all of these are based on the belief that we're lacking something. But when you stop searching, when you stop trying to be someone else, you start to realize that you've always been whole. You've always been enough. This is the moment of realization Tom had. It wasn't that his life became perfect. It wasn't that all his problems disappeared. It was that he stopped fighting with himself. He stopped trying to fix everything. He stopped trying to be perfect. And in that shift, he found peace. You see, life didn't suddenly become easier for Tom. But the difference was, he wasn't hard on himself anymore. He stopped thinking of everything as a problem that needed to be solved. He stopped measuring himself against some external standard. And in doing so, he found a freedom he hadn't even known existed. And this, my friends, is the lesson we can all learn from Tom's story. You don't need to fight your problems. You don't need to see them as problems at all. They're just experiences, things that come and go, like waves in the ocean. And you're the ocean, calm, fast, and unaffected by the waves that rise and fall on the surface. So here's the big question. What are you fighting against? What are you holding on to that's causing you so much stress and anxiety? Maybe it's time to let go of the belief that you need to be someone else or do something different to be happy. Maybe it's time to realize that you're already whole, just as you are. Tom stopped chasing after things that he thought would make him happy. He stopped trying to be perfect. And in doing so, he found the peace he had been searching for all along. And you can do the same.